Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay, here to talk a little bit about the whole Kendrick Lamar concert for Juneteenth and how this has everybody talking, the whole hip hop world. First of all, happy belated Juneteenth to everybody. I hope you had a good one with your families, enjoyed the holiday, celebration of freedom. You know, took a little bit of time to remember the history of why this is an important holiday. But the history that happened in 1865 is coupled with the history that happened in 2024 yesterday. And like I said, that's the Kendrick Lamar show. Kendrick Lamar decided that he was going to put on a show for Juneteenth, a concert in Los Angeles at the Roots Festival. So Dr. Dre is there, Schoolboy Q, a lot of West Coast artists. It was really a celebration of West Coast hip hop. And basically, he performed the song multiple times against Drake, the song Not Like Us, which is basically the hit of the summer. He did California Love with Dr. Dre, in which he performed Tupac's part. Um, and he had everybody up on stage dancing with him. Hey, Lisa, what's going on? How are you doing? One thing that struck me, oh no, that wasn't the Root. I thought it was the Roots Festival. Sorry, Lisa, my mistake. That was just his concert, right? So the energy on this performance. Now, I'm not a Kendrick Lamar fan at all, but uh, let me tell you guys, he blew it out the water with this performance. I have never seen a rap performance this lively ever. You know what I mean? He had people, he had like 20,000, he had like 20, 30 people up on stage and thousands in the audience just screaming his name and singing along to this song, dancing along to this song. I thought he united the whole West Coast. You know, he performed a lot of other of his songs. King Kunta, uh, he performed, some of his other hits. Uh, Collard Greens, he performed. You know what I mean? But the one that he kept performing over and over, and I even joked with Lisa about this, that he didn't really have any other songs, was that song, Not Like Us, which basically I think is his first hit song. Like that was the thing with Kendrick. It was like he never had a song that people could really dance to, a vibe, a hit. You know what I mean? That people would bump in their cars. He had good lyrics. You know what I mean? He always had good lyrics. He always came with the good lyrics, but he never really had, hits like that. You know what I mean? Now, with Not Like Us, he has a lot of traction with this. I can't go anywhere without hearing this song. This song is everywhere. And for a Drake stan like me, kind of infuriating to be honest. But people love it, and everybody was up on stage there. The whole West Coast, Bloods, Crips, Pyrus, Hoovers, as Lisa mentioned. Lisa um, brought this to my attention, and I saw it too. Different colors, and that's big for the West Coast because the West Coast is gangland city. It's always been plagued with gang activity, violent gang activity for decades now, since the 1970s. Maybe even before that. So Kendrick is sort of serving as a sort of bridge for peace for the West Coast, and just like in I got to give it up to Dr. Dre. Dr. Dre does it again, man. Dr. Dre once again bringing out a protege and changing the game, just like he did with Snoop, just like he did before Snoop with Ice Cube and Easy E, and then after Snoop with Eminem, and then later the Game, not and 50 even to some extent. Now bringing out Kendrick and changing the game once again. People say that Kendrick's energy, and I think Lisa will agree with this, is sort of like a new version of Tupac. But I thought the performance, like I said, was a little bit repetitive when it came to performing the same song over and over, multiple times. He didn't have to drive that home. I mean, we all know as Drake fans, as OVO fans, that he won this battle. You know what I mean? That he started, by the way. Uh, he won it decisively. Drake's response, or if you could call it a response, of You're My Everything featuring him and Sexy Red, that's a whack song. You know what I mean? That's a whack response. I mean, yeah, Metro, he took the piece of the Metro Boomin beef and put BBL Drizzy and tried to flip it around like he's the one getting bitches, getting the women out there, flying them out there, doing BBLs for them. Meanwhile, that wasn't the point of the diss. All this was that Drake himself has a BBL. You know what I mean? like he tried to flip it, but it's not like us shit. And the Euphoria track before it, there's no way Drake could flip it. There's no way to flip it. There's no spin he could put on it. He can't put a spin on it like he put a spin on the Pusha T beef, a few years back in 2018. There's no way to spin this. I mean, this is unspinnable in my opinion. But it was nice to see the West Coast come out and really show out because, like I said, me being from New York, and I said this a lot of times, the West Coast never really gets love. And the difference between both coasts went through the beef in the 90s, Biggie and Pac, but the difference between how the West turned out and how the East turned out was that the East had Jay-Z to pick up New York on his back and carry New York and kept New York atop. And then later on, DMX came out, Ja Rule, 50, all these other New York artists, Cameron, you know what I mean? That kept the New York style and the New York sound really going. West Coast didn't really have that. West Coast still had the people that they had from back in that era, the Snoop Dogs, and before that, the Snoop Dogs, the Ice Cubes, the Dr. Dre's, but they didn't have anybody to pick up the mantle with that West Coast sound, that West Coast vibe that was really mainstream. You know what I mean? You had underground gangster rappers, of course, you know what I mean? But you never really had nobody in the mainstream to really do that until 2005 Game came out, but then Game got itself in a lot of beef with people on his own label, and then he no longer had really Dr. Dre's support like that, like he had on the first album. So he never really had bangers the way that he had him in 2005. He never really had him again. So the West Coast kind of fell off again. And then Kendrick comes out. Nipsey never really went nowhere. Schoolboy Q never really went nowhere. YG never really went nowhere. You know what I mean? It's the same old West Coast artists that they always had. Whether it's Los Angeles, with the Compton, the people we know, like the Dre's, the Snoops, or even Oakland, the Bay Area with Mac Dre, Too Short, and E40. You know what I mean? They had their niche, but they never really broke through. So uh, this was cool to see because it was like West Coast artists celebrating being from the West Coast. You know what I mean? And celebrating blackness in general, because that's what Kendrick Lamar is always about. Now, I found it interesting that he did do a concert dissing Drake with the Drake diss as the centerpiece after Drake said the thing that he said. You know what I mean? Which was in one of his songs, in the Family Matters song, he says that Kendrick raps like he's trying to free the slaves. You know what I mean? Basically, an allusion to Kendrick's consciousness. Kendrick is a conscious rapper. He fashions himself in that old school '90s mode of the semi-conscious rapper like Ice Cube or Tupac. Which you would think somebody like me that I grew up on consciousness. I study a lot. I read a lot of books and everything. That I'll be into that. It just his melodies never struck me the same way as somebody like Pac or somebody like even early Kanye's or Ice Cube's or Nas's shit really struck me. The lyrics was always there. The conscience was always there. The attitude was always there. Yeah, the conscious. Lisa says he thinks that's why he did it in concert because uh, why would Drake tease that? Exactly. I like Drake. Been a fan of him since Degrassi. Been supportive of him. Even been accused of being a stan of his by Lisa and by other people. But when he said that, that was a bridge too far for me. The consciousness that I've grown up with, the background that I come from, being a student of Malcolm X, being a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, being a student of Louis Farrakhan, and being heavily political as I am coming up in the roots that I came up in, you would think that I would like Kendrick, but I never really did. But Drake, what he said offended me. You know what I'm saying? Because come on, you're not even from America. You're not uh, ADOS or FBA. Your father is. You know what I mean? But he was estranged from his father. So just like Kendrick says, he always kind of uses his dad as like his black card. You know what I mean? Because here you have, other than his dad, other than what he is genetically, Drake is a man who's of Canadian Jewish descent. His background, growing up in a middle class Canadian Jewish household, you know what I mean? And he's gonna basically make fun of slavery. Make fun of the hardships of slavery. You know what I mean? Something that his experience doesn't directly connect him to, because he grew up in Canada, a country that didn't have chattel slavery. They had colonialism, they had exploitation of Native Americans, but as far as enslavement of black people, that wasn't a thing in Canada. Remember, during the slave days, uh, people escaped from the United States to go to Canada. A lot of the people in Nova Scotia, the freedmen in Nova Scotia, that they fought on the side of the British during the American Revolution. Remember, so they fought on the losing side during uh, the Revolution of 1776, and after the British lost and they left the United States, those same slaves went to Nova Scotia and um, set up shop basically there. So Canada does have a large black community, but the black people in Canada are mostly immigrants, from Somalia, from the West Indies, you know, and a few from the United States, but not directly connected to uh, the American slave experience. What Tariq Nasheed would call FDA, what's FBA, what some people would call um, ADOS, like Kendrick Lamar, his family, and basically every other American black person from the U.S., black person with roots in the American South, slavery, roots in American slavery. So for Drake to not only be biracial, but to have no direct connection to that experience growing up is fucked up for him to make fun of that. It'd be like, could you imagine the outrage if Kendrick Lamar made a lyric in one of his songs about Drake being, Drake's family, his mother's side being in the Holocaust? You know what I mean? They would be up in arms if he said something like that, right? You know what I mean? So for Drake to go there, I know what he was trying to get at, but it just was fucked up because, okay, now you've lost all the support that you would have had because you took it from a rap beef. Now you went into something racial. Now you went into something, you know, you took it from here to there. You know what I mean? Like now you've offended a whole community. And now for none, it's stuff that white rappers like Eminem or like Paul Wall. But I don't know if Paul Wall ever been in beef with anybody that I know. So I'll just use Eminem because I know Eminem is a battle rap and he's been in beef for the longest. I don't know if any other white rapper has been in beef with somebody who was a black rapper like MGK or whatever. So I'm not going to go there. But even they wouldn't dare to stoop to the level. They wouldn't touch that topic. You know what I mean? Because they know that's playing with fire. I mean, they know that the majority of the hip hop community is black, and not only black, but FBA. And not only are they black and FBA, foundational Black American, also, but we're living in a time that is heavily socially conscious. You know what I mean? Every 20 years or so in American history, we go through that. You know what I mean? We go to a period where we're heavily socially conscious, and then a period where the socially conscious period fades away from hip hop and from popular culture in general. The '60s, it was a lot of that. You know what I mean? In the music and in the pop culture, dancing in the street, Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. A lot of the Motown stuff was quasi conscious. A little bit later, other forms of black music, even Motown, like Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, Stevie Wonder, a lot of his later stuff in the '70s would get even more conscious in the '60s and '70s. Then, by the late '70s and early '80s, that was the disco era. That stuff faded away and that kind of went away. Then by the late '80s and early '90s, that stuff came back. Public Enemy, Tribe Called Quest, Brand Nubian, a lot of the conscious hip hop, early Tupac stuff was heavily socially conscious in the beginning. Brenda's Got a Baby, Keep Your Head Up, that late '80s, early '90s vibe, culminating, of course, in the Million Man March in 1995. And then after 1995, that kind of faded away. Even Tupac started to do other stuff, and that was kind of gone from popular culture until uh, the late 2010s. The start of the the start of the Black Lives Matter movement, the start of basically this started the Black Lives Matter movement in 2012, and coincidentally, that's around the same time that Kendrick Lamar came out. The early, um, uh, you know, that part, like, the mid 2010s, the 2010s. So every so often, it hits America. It happens most of the time. It's triggered by events in the '50s, '60s, and '70s. It was triggered by Emmett Till's murder, by the civil rights movement in the '80s and early 90s. It was triggered by incidents that was happening in New York, Howard Beach, um, um, Bensonhurst, Crown Heights, and of course Rodney King. Um, and this time around is triggered by Black Lives Matter, the assassination of black men by police, and what tends to happen when that happens is, like Lisa is saying, the unconscious rappers or the unconscious music acts fade away. People stop wanting to listen to that bubblegum shit and start wanting to listen to something a little bit more serious. And the smart people, like like I said, like Stevie Wonder, in the early '60s, before all this was going down, he was doing My Sharia Moore. He was doing pop hits. Then later on, he shifted. He started rocking dashikis and he started talking more pro-black stuff in his music. You know what I mean? Marvin Gaye, the same thing. Beginning doing Stubborn Kind of Fella, and then he shifted. You know, rap, the same thing. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was first to do it in 1982 with The Message, and then we went into something else with Run DMC, more commercial stuff, and then when it got more conscious, Public Enemy came out. You know what I mean? 1989, and everything changed. You know, and now it seems like everything changing again. The party, the party music, like Drake was doing, and like other rappers were doing. Maybe people are not into that anymore. That maybe people saying that's bullshit. Maybe they want to get into Kendrick Lamar stuff. But Lisa's saying she doesn't think it has anything to do with the shift. Um, and then she also said I should start listening to Kendrick Lamar. I like conscious rappers because Drake isn't conscious rapper at all. Says Drake decided to go after Kendrick and got bodied. Again, Kendrick started the beef, Lisa. You know what I mean? But I will say this. I do believe that Kendrick started to beef, and I'll stick to that because that's what happened. On record, historically, that's what happened. But where Drake took it to was another level. You know what I mean? Drake saying that, I mean, look at the lines that he used. He said, I think Whitney needs a bodyguard. It was a double meaning. Of course, Whitney Houston and the bodyguard, but also the idea or the concept that Kendrick's baby's mother, Whitney Alford, had an affair with his bodyguard, Dave Freeze. You know what I mean? And insinuating that Kendrick's child is not is not his child. You know what I mean? That is Dave Freeze's kid. You know what I mean? So, and then one thing I didn't respect about Drake was he took it. He was the one to bring out the kids. You know what I mean? He was the one to talk about Kendrick's kids. Talk about how Kendrick doesn't take pictures. He says, "Why you never hold your son? Why you never hold your son and tell him to say cheese?" Basically, why doesn't Kendrick ever hold his child up, take pictures with his son, and tell him to say cheese? But how highly hypocritical of Drake to say this when Drake was the one, until Pusha T came out with Songs of Adidon, Story of Adidon, the diss record against him, 2018. We never even knew uh, Adonis Graham existed. You know what I mean? So, like, not only were you not taking pictures of your child or with your child, telling them to say cheese, but you never even acknowledged that you had a child, right? And then for him to bring out the domestic abuse allegations, supposedly Kendrick, uh, is accused of being a wife beater of his girlfriend. You know what I mean? Of course, which Drake knows that by saying that in this Me Too era, look at Diddy, that will immediately get you canceled, right? But with no receipts, no evidence. I mean, granted, Kendrick didn't have any receipts or evidence when he came out with the pedophile allegations against Drake, or PDF file, as people say, right? But he had an admission from Drake. You know what I mean? Drake actually admitted that he texted Millie Bobby Brown, that he texted these other female stars. You, you know what I mean? So it wasn't any real big revelation when it came to that. You know what I mean? But if you're gonna say something, right? But underage, Lisa said. But if you're gonna say something about a fellow rapper, another rapper, right, and that you've worked closely with, that you've done songs with, because they started. This is what makes this beef so personal, in my opinion, is because they started. They're like Biggie and Pac in a way. They started off as friends. You know what I mean? They used to do some fucking problem. It was, and by the way, not only did Drake, speaking of fucking problem, not only did Drake diss Kendrick, but he also dissed uh, ASAP Rocky. Again, with this ASAP Rocky shit, talking about ASAP Rocky, they only like him for his modeling, and that uh, that he fucked Rihanna. Going back to him fucking Rihanna. You know, what I mean. So, but going back to my original point, Kendrick, Drake, and ASAP Rocky were all on fucking problem together with 2 Chainz. I like bad bitches, my fucking problem. Which was my song back in the day when they were all friends. I like bad bitches, that's my fucking problem. you know, but people say, did Kendrick Lamar miss out on a sweet opportunity? Um, a sweet opportunity to get on first time shooters with Drake and J. Cole, the three of them, basically the three top dogs in the game, the big three. I don't think so. You know what I mean? Like, that song didn't really need him. At least it says Drake start stuff. Yeah, but I mean, well, yeah, he's kind of like Nicki Minaj in that way. At least it says Drake starts stuff off with actual rappers, and then when things go left, he goes south. Yeah, well, he's kind of like Nicki Minaj in that way. See, Nicki and Drake, uh, the problem with them is that they're not battle rappers, but they've been in battles, and in Nicki's case, she's never won one. You know what I mean? There hasn't been a battle that she has won, unless you count in her early days, she had a little bit of a thing with her against Little Kim. You know, and she kind of dusted Little Kim off. But Little Kim and Eve, the early beefs that she had in the early days, uh, you know, I mean, yeah, they're pop rappers, Lisa, but see, the problem with pop rap, the phrase pop rapper, is that anybody that becomes a popular rapper can be conceived as a pop rapper. You know what I mean? That's the problem with the category, the musical category of pop, is that it's so amorphous. It's so undefinable, right? I feel like there are pop rappers because they play them on Z100, but see, I'm from the 90s. My barometer, if you are a pop performer, they play on Z100. If they don't play on Z100, then you're not a pop rapper, right? You know, I remember back in the day when they never played any rap on Z100. So, except for Will Smith. Will Smith was always, I feel like the lane that Drake occupied was kind of the lane that Will Smith paid from. You know what I mean? Will Smith was Drake before Drake. You know what I mean? He kind of took the music world by storm, but see, he never had the sales that Drake had. He had some of the awards, but he never had the sales. Drake had tremendous sales because Drake had tremendous hit songs. Nicki too. Nicki and Drake were neck and neck a lot of times throughout the 2010s. Yeah, Lisa says that's what she means by a pop rapper. They play more on Z100 thing on 97. Well, I don't know, because Lisa, I just got back into the radio thanks to the block, and they play old school stuff. So I don't know what they were really playing on the radio. All throughout the 2010s. I know what I was listening to, which was mostly Nicki and Drake. Uh, during that era, because hardcore rap kind of faded away. After I say about 2009 ish, 10 ish, hardcore rap as we knew it, the Jay Z's, the 50s, the Dipsets, the G Units, that kind of faded to the background. People's taste changed, from that, and they stopped wanting to hear about all the guns and drugs and shit, and started wanting to hear something a little bit more, party friendly. And that's when Drake and Nicki and all them, came into being. Uh, Nicki stole a lot of her style from Left Eye, and she kind of rolled. I do, Lisa. I do. I like. Um, I from the concert, I can't really glean a lot of his newer stuff, but I like some. I always used to like some of his older stuff, but like I said, none of his stuff was like hits. You know what I mean? Like I always thought he had good lyrics. Swimming pools was a good song. King Kunta was a good song. Black of the Berry, of course, a pretty good song. He always had good lyrics, but he never really had songs that really stuck out to me. You know, Honestly, when he won a lot of Grammys, I kind of felt like Drake in a way. I kind of felt like, well, like Killer Mike. Why is Killer Mike winning Grammys? Why is some of these people winning Grammys? Like Kendrick Lamar, you would never hear him on the radio at all, really, all that much. Viral was a good song from the Damn album in 2017, right? It's Pimp a Butterfly, of course, this classic uh, album. You know what I mean? But he never really had any bangers, in my opinion. I mean, lyrically, he was good, but lyrics can only get you but so far. But I think he's turned a corner with this. Hopefully, he could capitalize on this momentum, and become a successful artist. Transcend that conscious label, kind of like Nas did, kind of like Tupac did. Yeah, they were conscious artists and they remain conscious artists, but they weren't bogged down, in my opinion, Lisa, to that conscious label. When you get bogged down to that conscious label, then you become Talib Kweli, then you become Mos Def, then you become uh, Talib Kweli, Common, India Ari, those kind of conscious artists, and people don't want to hear that. You know what I'm saying? At least they didn't, when he first came out. You know what I mean? Well, Lisa says, well, radio plays with the new generation. Well, even our generation didn't want to hear that. You know what I mean? Even our generation, like Jay Z said it. He said, I always wanted to rap like Common Sense, but I have enough common sense to know that, basically I'm paraphrasing, but he said, I always wanted to rap like Common Sense, but I have enough common sense to know that that's not gonna sell. You know, you know what I mean. So even our generation was not on that. You know what I mean. You can mix it. You can mix it. You can no. I have to disagree with that, Lisa. Our generation was not on that. Like Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Common, those kind of artists. I was the only one back in the day listening to shit like that I knew of. You know what I'm saying? On my block, in my area. You know, but you still, but see the difference with today and back on our day. Even if people weren't getting into the roots, they weren't getting into India Ari, they weren't getting into Erica Badu, the early stuff with Baduism, the first album, right? Or even early Outcast, at least the way they used to dress and how they were presented sonically in Southern, uh, um, their first album, the Southern Playlistic Cadillac Music. First, I forget how you pronounce that, but anyway, their first album. Yeah, maybe not so much, what they were rapping about, but just how they presented themselves. Those kind of rappers, even if they never really sold a lot of records, they still had a lane for them. Now there's no lane for them. You know what I'm saying? There's no lane for the immortal techniques, uh, the Talib Kweli, the Indiaries, any of those neo soul, conscious hip hop type artists anymore. There's no lane for them at all. At least in our day, they weren't on top of the rap game like they were in the '80s, but there was a lane for them. People still listened to them. They still had an audience for them. Now there's no audience for them. You know, Lauren Hills, the success of the Miseducation of Lauren Hills proved for that there was still a market for them. The year she came out was the same year Black Star came out with their first album, the same year the Roots came out with their second album. You know what I mean? I was into that scene. I was into all that. You know what I mean? So I know a lot about that scene, the conscious side of hip hop. You know, what they used to call backpack rappers. You know, Kanye West came out of that. Uh, Jay Dilla and Slum Village, even the Outsiders, Eminem's early group, uh, uh, came out of that. Lisa says our music wasn't mumble music, and every so often a mainstream artist would throw in conscious messaging in their music, even if they weren't conscious artists. Like TLC did this a lot. A lot of TLC's music, even though I wouldn't say they were conscious on the level, the R&B level of say Erica Badu or an India Arie or something like that, or even an early Alicia Keys on the first album was kind of in that neo soul vein, or a Jill Scott. They weren't on that level in terms of R&B, but they would every once in a while with songs like "I'm Pretty" and "Waterfalls." And even from the beginning, when they were advocating safe sex, they would throw in social messaging in there, aimed at you know a conscience for young females. Um, a lane like that doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? And it should, and it's getting there for the men. You know what I mean? We see it with Kendrick Lamar. Hopefully, it'll get there for the women as well. Hopefully, yeah, you can have a sexy red, you can have uh, Ice Spice, Lotto, right? But you gotta also balance it out like we did in our generation. We had a Lauryn Hill, we had an Erica Badu, but we also had a Queen. We also had a Little Kim, a Foxy Brown. But for every Little Kim and Foxy Brown we had a Lauryn Hill, or we had a Left Eye. Somebody with a different sort of style, somebody that was coming out with something completely different, a different sort of style that wasn't just selling sexuality. You can't just have one thing. You know what I mean? It has to be diversity. You know what I mean? And that's what's really missing from this homogenized music nowadays is diversity. There's no diversity in look. There's no diversity in sound. There's no diversity in attitude. And to get it, you have to really look underground. You have to look for the Lola Bankses, right, of the world. Or the other girl that Lisa yesterday pointed me to a video of, right? Or even the Kendrick Lamars. You have to look for that sort of thing in order to get that sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's not going to be presented to you like everything was presented to us and what we gravitated towards. What we gravitated towards. You always had, in hip hop, you always had three types of rappers. You had, like Lisa saying, the pop rappers. Like, you always had that. You know what I mean? In our era was Will Smith, Puffy. Well, Will Smith was a whole nother level because he didn't even get played on hip hop radio at all. He was completely pop, especially when after he came back from making, acting, and then tried to go back into hip hop. It was not respected. You know what I mean? But uh, yeah, the pop rappers. You know what I mean? I think of Puffy during the Shiny Suit era after Biggie died, kind of a pop rapper lane. Then you had your hardcore rappers that would rap about street shit like The Locks, DMX, Big Pun, Cannabis, and then you had your conscious rappers, and then you had your guys that were somewhere in the middle. They weren't Talib Kweli and Common, but they weren't The Locks and Dipset or Cameron either. You know what I mean? They like Nas, for example. You know, not okay, Nalim, okay, yeah. Uh, and the Wu Tang kind of was in the middle of that too, because Wu Tang would throw in 5% of references, some conscious stuff here and there, especially in the RZA songs. But they kind of were kind of more street, hardcore ish. And then, yeah, guys that straddled the pop and hardcore ish lane like Tupac and Biggie. You know what I mean? But you had every sort of style. You know, for the conscious people, you had conscious rap. For the street people, you had street rap. And for the pop commercial people, like the club hits, you had the club hits that people would love to dance to. You need everything. You need a little bit of everything because different moods call for different moods. Yeah, Method Man said he's not for this generation. Different moods call for different attitudes. If I'm at a party, I don't want to hear somebody rapping about gunplay and selling drugs, like the Locks or Dipset. Or neither do I want to hear somebody rapping about the struggle at a party. If I'm at a party, I want to hear about somebody shaking their ass, dancing. You know what I mean? Getting on the dance floor, getting crunk, like Get Low, Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. You know what I mean? But if I'm at a social event, like a Juneteenth event, I don't want to hear about women shaking their asses, nor do I want to hear about gunplay, But if I want to get hyped, yeah, I'll listen to a little gunplay hip hop too, a little bit of Mobb Deep, a little bit of MOP, a little bit of the Locks, Wild Out, you know what I mean? Getting that sort of hardcore mode, DMX, you know, and then sometimes you just want to chill and think about shit. So you listen to Common, or you listen to Talib Kweli, or you listen to Most Def, and you really get in your conscious mode. That's the way I always looked at it. I always had a little bit of everything in my palette. Then when I felt a little bit of crazy, I want to listen to something that was really wild and far out there. A little bit of Eminem, early Eminem, old school Eminem, some shady stuff, wild and crazy, funny shit, you know. But that was the beauty of our generation, Lisa, was that we had everything. We had it all. Whatever you wanted in hip hop, we had it. You know what I mean? You want commercial, we got it. You want hardcore, we got it. You want sexy, we got it. You want club hits, we got it. Everything. We had everything. We don't have everything now. You know what I'm saying? We don't have hardcore and we don't have conscious hip rap. All we have is club hits. All we have is sex. All we have is ratchetness. That's all we got. You know what I mean? And the love shit that Drake and people like that put up. Which that has to exist too, and that always has existed in hip hop. People made fun of Ja Rule for doing that, but Ja Rule found his lane. And funny thing is, 50 made fun of him for doing that, but 50 did the same thing. 21 Questions, 50's first hit was a love song. Drake found his same lane in that lane. Drake's lane, I said, was kind of like paid by Will Smith, but I take that back. Drake's lane actually is not a Will Smith lane. Drake's lane is a LL Cool J lane. LL Cool J is the father of love rap. And you need love rap because we all fall in love with females as men. We all want songs to dedicate to women. You know what I mean? People that act like they're too conscious and too, uh, peeking out their third eye. You know what I mean? Too much listening to Immortal Technique and too much listening to Talib Kweli and Most Def and Dead Prez. That they can't fall in love with a girl and want to dedicate a song to a girl. Or if you're too hardcore and too street and too gangster and you don't want to dedicate a song to a girl, and you clown people like Drake and Ja Rule and LL Cool J and Nelly. But you need that in hip hop, right? You need that too. Nelly was that, in the early 2000s. He had songs like Dilemma that you could dedicate to a girl. You need that in hip hop. You know what I'm saying? You need that. That needs to exist too. That lane needs to exist. You know what I mean? That soft lane. That needs to exist just as much as hardcore, just as much as party, and just as much as conscience. Because all that is a part of the experience. You know what I mean? All that's another mood. Eminem's wackiness is a mood. Uh, MOP's hardcore is a mood. Locks hardcore is a mood. conscious rap is a mood, and love rap is a mood. So Drake came in the love rap lane. Lisa, you know the kind of music that you could listen to and dedicate to a female. And everybody likes Drake when he's a love rapper. Everybody, even Kendrick Lamar. What are you saying? What are you saying? Euphoria. I like Drake with the melodies. I don't like Drake when he acts tough. There you go, right there. Drake's lane is the melodies. Drake's lane is the songs. You know, um, making songs that you could dedicate to a female, either a breakup with a female like Hotline Bling, or trying to find, or Marvin's Room, or in love with a female like Better Find Your Lovin'. Having to do with relationships. You need that too. You know, so I don't think there's anything wrong with his style. Lisa said she thinks that, well, him going at any rapper was stupid, Lisa, because one thing about the love rappers, okay, LL Cool J, let's take LL Cool J for example, because I said, I feel like me being a student of hip hop, you know, studying hip hop from the beginning, the very beginning, my parents, one of the first records I ever heard, my parents, my mom, and my stepfather put on for me was Sugar Hill Gang. Rap is the first rap record ever made in 1979. So I've been with it since the beginning. You know what I mean? Hearing stuff from older siblings and parents and all that. So I think LL Cool J was the father of love rap. But LL Cool J, started off as a hardcore battle rapper. People don't remember that. I'm Bad. One of his first songs was a battle song. Right. Lisa says he's not a but he came out with the first rap love song, I Need Love. Lisa. And later on, as he matured, that really became his lane. Like he would do the love songs. But Mama Said Knock You Out was a little after. That's when he had the beef with Kumo D and Ice T. You know what I mean? Like, so basically was saying, look, you, I'm not a battle rapper no more. I gave up battling. I did it battling and I'm bad. And then I gave up battling. He even said, I'm not like Michael Jackson and I'm not like Prince, differentiating himself from the premier R&B artists, of that time, the mid 80s. You know what I mean? So, but he made the love song and then he was forced to go back to battle rap because somebody challenged him. So that's when he said, don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years, putting suckers in tears. you know what I mean? He was forced to go back to battling twice in his career, LL. Because after the battle with Ice T, he went back to love rapping with like songs like "Doing It," and then Cannabis forced him out of retirement to battle Cannabis in 1998. You know what I mean? So he did it twice in his career, where he was forced to go back to battling. But see, with Drake, he didn't start off in the battle game. He was not known to be a battle rapper. So it's not like LL. It's different. You know what I mean? Certain rappers are known for certain things. Eminem is known as a battle rapper. Besides doing the crazy stuff, hardcore fans know him as a battle rapper. That you go against him, he battles. What did Drake say in the beginning of his career on the song "Successful" with uh, Trey Songz? Diss me and you'll never get a response from me. That's what he originally said when he first came out in 2009. Then all of a sudden, he wins the battle with Meek Mill. He completely destroys Meek Mill. Back to back is one of the best, rap disses. It's up there with No Vaseline, with Mama Said Knock You Out, with Hit 'Em Up, with, uh, up there with the top diss records, ever in hip hop. You know what I mean? Back to back has to be up there because of the way he eviscerated Meek Mill. And then, Drake starts thinking he's the man. You know what I mean? Because you won one battle, you start thinking that uh, you know, you're a battle rapper now, and anybody that comes against you cannot win. And it's like he got a gas. Like you won one battle, and the way that he won the battle was not like what he said was not, lyrical and like tearing them apart. Like he didn't come at him with hardcore verses like, wow, you can't believe he said that. He came at him with a good song. And that's what makes this whole Kendrick Lamar thing so unique, was that that's how Kendrick beat Drake. Drake beat Drake at his own game, basically. Because he didn't come at him with lyrics that tore him apart. He came at him with a good song, with a good melody, a good banger, a song that people will remember. And the best diss records are those kind of records. Look at the ones I listed. The Bridge is Over, The South Bronx, No Vaseline, Hit 'Em Up. Even Cannabis is one, Second Round Knockout, Dre Day. All these diss records. Sheether. Well, Ether and Sheether. Ether, Nas directed to Jay-Z, and Sheether, Remy Ma directed to Nicki Minaj. I wouldn't say that they were necessarily classic songs. But Ether's a classic song, but it doesn't have a hook that people remember. It's just like he lyrically eviscerated Jay-Z. You know what I mean? But what Drake managed to do was create a hot song, and then people paid attention to the song, and then didn't know that, okay, the lyrics are weak, but the song is hot. You know what I mean? Sometimes in a battle, like, for example, when Jada Kiss, battled against 50, Checkmate was a better song than Piggy Bank, but people always remember Piggy Bank because Piggy Bank was a better song. So I think what happened with Drake is and like, he didn't win. He lost the battle to Pusha T, obviously, because Pusha T is a better lyrical. He's more lyrical. He's a better rapper. But he survived it. You know what I mean? Drake continued. He lost the battle. He came out with In Your Feelings, and In Your Feelings became a hit. He survived it. He didn't get destroyed by it. Kind of like Rick Ross. Rick Ross survived the beef with 50. Rick Ross, yeah, he had the beef with 50. 50 kind of destroyed him by exposing that he was a cop, which was something that Drake brought up too in the battle. With Rick Ross. Now he got beef with Rick Ross. He brought up that he's a cop. That's old now. You know what I mean? Saying Rick Ross is a cop is like the thing that they always come against Drake with, that he's Canadian. So what? Or that Eminem is white. So what? Like, we know that already. Like, what are you gonna come win next? We know that Rick Ross used to be a police officer. That's not news. It's like 50 was the first to come out with that back in the day. Oh, Lisa, I didn't think you left, Lisa. I'm sorry. You got anything else you want to add, Lisa, to this discussion? We got we're talking about just rap beefs in general, but how Drake thought he was invincible. Drake thought nobody could beat him because he survived the Pusha T beef and because he destroyed Meek Mill. You know what I mean? But Meek Mill was in Nicki Minaj's shadow at the time. You know what I mean? And then Meek Mill comes out with that weak response. But Kendrick is on a whole nother level. Kendrick figured out, okay, I'm gonna beat Drake at his own game. I'm gonna come out with a hot song, and I'm gonna destroy Drake. And and ask anybody, ask Ja Rule, ask Cannabis. Some of these guys, like Cannabis and Ja Rule, stick out in my mind since I've been a fan of hip hop. Really been listening to hip hop. Like I said, I've been with hip hop since I heard the not when it first came out, obviously, but years later as a kid, my parents would play uh, Sugar Hill Gang in the car. And Sugar Hill Gang was kind of like Drake in a way. Uh, they were manufactured by a record label. And that's when Lisa asked, how did Drake become popular? Well, one, Lisa, Drake became popular because of Lil Wayne's cosign. Lil Wayne at the time when Drake came out, 08, 09, Lil Wayne had classics, man. I'll say, and I said it in the 2010s review video, Lil Wayne was the top rapper of the late 2000s. You know what I mean? So the fact that Drake had Lil Wayne's cosign, right? Bedrock, best I ever had. The fact that he had Lil Wayne's cosign, if Drake didn't have Lil Wayne's cosign, just like Eminem, because if if Eminem didn't have Dre, there would be no Eminem, and if Drake didn't have Lil Wayne, there would be no Drake, right? If he didn't have Wayne's cosign, he would have went nowhere. A lot of times, it's the established artist that gives you the cosign that allows you to propel into this world, and they had something against him. Drake, he had against him that he was an actor turning into a rapper. Because remember when I said Will Smith was a rapper that turned into an actor, but when he went back into rap after Bad Boys, after Fresh Prince, after Independence Day, after he became this big star, he tried to go back into rap with the Big Willie style, and he never had he never had the respect of hip hop ever. Millennium and Big Willie style were not albums that hip hop heads were bumping at all. In fact, if you had a Will Smith CD back in the day, people laughed at you. So the fact that an actor who, by the time Will Smith came back into the rap game, people knew him more as an actor than they knew that he was a rapper. They forgot he was a rapper. So that was against Drake. That was a strike against him because they're like, oh, well, he's going to be like another Will Smith. He's going to be an actor going into rap. Or Brian Austin Green, the kid from 90210, had a rap album out, right? So many of these other actors have had rap albums out, but they all were considered as jokes. Right? They all were considered as jokes. Just like how white rappers were considered as jokes. White rappers weren't taken seriously in rap when Eminem came out, but because of Dre, Eminem got that momentum. So actors turning into rappers were always considered as a joke. What Lil Wayne did with Drake was like, could you imagine? And all my wrestling fans will know this. In 2004, John Cena came out with a rap album. Could you imagine if John Cena had a cosign from somebody big in the rap industry? You know, somebody real big in the rap industry, and and all of a sudden blew up as a rapper. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's like what happened to Drake. In fact, even on a smaller level, because Drake was an even smaller celebrity than John Cena. You know, because wrestling is a lot bigger, or was a lot bigger in the 2000s than Degrassi. You know what I mean? Degrassi was not a big show. Degrassi was not a successful show. And even if that it was a successful show, Drake was not the main star of Degrassi. Other people were. Yeah, but he sold a lot of records, Lise. He is more known now as a rapper than he is an actor. And but it did. That's what I'm saying. At least he wasn't on the level of Will Smith. He wasn't on the level of a John Cena. He wasn't on the level of Brian Austin Green or Shaq or Kobe or Allen Iverson. People that people that come from these other forms of entertainment that are not music, and people don't take them serious when they come out with rap albums, right? They don't. Nobody took Shaq serious when he came out with a rap album. Kobe when he tried to come out with a rap album, or Allen Iverson or John Cena. All these guys had rap albums, but nobody took them serious because, I mean, you know, but Drake, people took serious. And not only took serious, but he became more synonymous with the thing he does now than what he used to do. And that's how you know you're successful. You know what I mean? It's like The Rock. People think of The Rock more as an actor than they do a wrestler. Only wrestling fans think of him as a wrestler. Everybody else thinks of him as more of an actor. Okay, his reps. Lisa says he's, but see, that's the lane you got to be in. Okay, Lisa says more women. Yeah, but see, that's the lane you got to be in, though, Lisa. I mean, that's really the lane you got to be in because, right. Uh, Jesse Morty says, yeah, the newer generation don't know The Rock is a wrestler. That's my point. He said, and Lisa says he never gets respect only from me as a man. But okay, Lisa, he doesn't get. So you need to say all his streams come from women? All his streams come from women? I doubt it. Millions of streams that come from all women? Okay, they're saying that now because they're hating on him. But watch in a couple of years after this all blows over. Watch in a couple of decades. People have a tendency to do this. People did this with Star Wars. I mean, I lived through it when it came to Star Wars. I lived through people saying the prequels were shitty. George Lucas ruined my childhood. George Lucas raped my childhood. Now, as an adult, everybody's sitting here saying, "Oh, the prequels were great, right? The prequels, man, that was some of the best shit ever." Meanwhile, when it was going on, when it was new in people's mind, when it was in theaters, people loved it. You know what I mean? People hated it rather. But over time, people say, "Well, it wasn't that bad." Some things in pop culture never fade away. Some things will always be, uh, will always, have you. The stench never goes away. If you're Vanilla Ice, yeah, people are never gonna come around to say, "You know what, Ice Ice Baby was a good song." Reasons in hip hop, a certain time period in your popularity fame. Well, that's every walk of life in entertainment. Every walk of life in entertainment that happens. You know what I'm saying? People always fall off. That always happens. You know what I mean? If they don't fall off, they die. You know what I'm saying? In professional wrestling, the reason why we never say that Owen Hart fell off, excuse me, poor choice of words. Owen Hart, stopped being a legend or stopped being popular is because he passed away. You know what I mean? Same thing in hip hop. We never could say that Biggie and Pac fell off because they passed away. We never knew. They never reached their potential. You either die young or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. That's how it is in every walk of life, not just entertainment, but even in politics. I mean, the reason why we look at Kennedy with such greatness was because, I mean, the guy never even finished out his first term in office. He died in '63. He was a it was suspended potential. We never really knew how good Kennedy could be. So people, of course, they're going to say, well, he was one of the GOATs, even though he technically wasn't. You know what I'm saying? When you look at what he actually accomplished other than the Cuban Missile Crisis. You know what I mean? So, and like in hip hop, Biggie only had 2 albums. Yes, Biggie's first album was tremendous. It brought the East Coast back. It had a tremendous impact. But it wasn't, it was only 2 albums. You know what I'm saying? So my point is, Lisa, that yes, that happens. Not only in hip hop, it happened in regular pop music. We talked about before the artists of the decade. Okay, let's list them. The 50s, Elvis, the 60s, the Beatles, the 70s, Stevie Wonder, the 80s, Michael Jackson, the 90s, Mariah Carey, the 2000s, Eminem, as Jesse brought up, and the 2010s, Drake. Billboard Artist of the Decade. I'm going only by Billboard, not by American Music Awards, because they elected Taylor Swift as the Artist of the Decade, which some will say that she is. But Drake got the nod for Billboard, and this is a video about Drake, so let's. Britney Spears, but she was not, okay, Jesse, yes, Britney Spears, but she was never Artist of the Decade in her era because she came out in the late 90s, and she didn't really dominate the 2000s. But yes, Jesse is right. She fell off too, and people criticize. People remember when people turned against Britney. Remember, Chris Crocker became popular on YouTube. Leave Britney alone. Remember that campaign? Leave Britney alone, because people turned against Britney. But at one time in 1999, Britney was the shit, right? Brittany walked on water. Eminem he brought up. Uh, Eminem was brought up. Eminem, man, you couldn't. We lived and died by Eminem's lyrics when I was in school. When I was in a 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, 2003, the Eminem Show, which many people consider as his magnum opus, his best album. Me, I loved Marshall Mathers LP, the one that came out 3 years before that. 2 years before that. You know what I mean? But many people consider the Eminem Show to be his pinnacle. Me, but and then again, Eminem fell off. People started hating Eminem. Okay, just like all these other people. Why was everybody so devastated and hurt when Tupac died in '96? They say he was a special rapper. Angel Hall says, well, Angel, one thing I could say, why I consider him to be a special rapper, and he was my first favorite rapper. Like I said, my parents exposed me to hip hop from an early age. When I really got into hip hop as a real fan, it's kind of like wrestling. I was exposed to it first, but then I became a real big fan. He was my first favorite. He was my first guy that I say he was my guy. You know what I mean? I got into hip hop through West Coast rap first. And when I started listening to Pac, one thing that touched me was his poetry, his realness. He wasn't the best lyrically, but he was the best poetic wise. He impacted society in a way that went beyond music. So yes, he was a very special rapper. And you want to hear how special he really was, I implore you to listen to Brenda's Got a Baby, How Long Will They Mourn Me, Thug's Mansion, Keep Your Head Up, Dear Mama, exactly. And when it, Ashanti or Alicia Keys, who was more beautiful, I mean, yeah, I'm going with Ashanti, but I don't know. It's a toss up, man, because Alicia in her day, man, her first era with the braids, I keep on falling, man. She was bad too, man. You know what I mean? But as far as looks, it depends, man. I mean, it depends. Uh, for her look in my era, she was the one that even if the girl was mixed and she didn't look like Alicia Keys or Maya, people would automatically go to a mixed girl and be like, "Oh, you look like Alicia Keys and Maya," just as spitting game. Back then. You know what I mean? But I'm going with I don't know. That's a close one for me. But as far as a singer, looks wise, probably I'll go with Alicia. You know what I mean? It's hard to say. Body wise, I'm talking about looks wise, face wise. Body wise, I'm going with Ashanti, no doubt. Music wise, I don't know, man. And that's a toss up for me because I was big into Alicia at one time. 2001, that first album, Songs in A Minor, I never heard nothing like it, man. And she was good to look at. She was pretty hot back then. You know what I mean? She messed up her reputation a little bit by going out with Swiss Beats when he was a married man. you know, uh, that's neither here nor there. But as far as looks, I'm going with Alicia, face wise. Uh, Angel says Tupac's music made. Angel, are you a man or a woman, Angel? Because I want to say that Angel said Tupac's music made him cry, but I'm not sure if you know of how you identify. But Tupac's music made them cry, according to Angel. Uh, this okay, woman, okay. Uh, yeah, nice to have you, Angel. We don't usually have, other than Lisa. This is not a there's not a lot of women on there, so nice to have a female perspective, other than Lisa's on here. But yeah, Lauren Hill can't mess with Mary. That's an interesting topic that I wanted to bring up. Uh, I wanted to bring up as far as albums. They say that Lauren Hill had the best album ever out of any R&B artist or any music artist to begin with, any genre of music. I don't really know about that. As far as Mary being the queen of R&B, yes, Mary, she was the soundtrack to every girl's breakup, heartache. Anybody that has sisters, anybody that had female cousins, female friends, in the 90s, where there was a female themselves, of course, everybody went through relationships. Mary was the soundtrack to that. Mary was, in many ways, the Aretha Franklin of her generation, of the hip hop generation. And she changed the game for R&B because the R&B singers before her, right? They was kind of like Anita Baker, Whitney Houston, and no disrespect to Anita Baker or Whitney Houston, but Whitney Houston and Anita Baker, Whitney Houston tried later on to connect with the hip hop audience, but she never really could. She was never able to tap into that. That aesthetic, that style. But Mary bridged the gap. Mary bridged the gap between R&B and hip hop to the point where R&B and hip hop Mary's kind of metamorphosis, bringing it back to the original conversation. Mary's metamorphosis uh, from an R&B singer, bringing R&B to hip hop, merging the two, kind of made a way for kind of artists like Drake that sing and rap at the same time. So did Lauryn Hill in a way, but Lauryn Hill's shit was like, it was one album. She didn't have the legacy that Mary had. Mary was on every soundtrack. Not Gonna Shed No More Tears. Back in the Waiting to Exhale soundtrack, which was one of the best soundtracks ever in the 90s in terms of soundtracks. She bridged the gap between hip hop and R&B, really. It made the two genres really indistinguishable. Brought that hip hop attitude to R&B in a real way. You know, it was already kind of there with Teddy Riley's stuff for New Jack Swing, but she really brought it to a whole nother dimension when she came out. That's why you're right. She is the queen of R&B, and Lauryn Hill's not messing with her because Lauryn Hill chose to drop out of the game. You know what I mean? She didn't choose to pursue music any longer, Angel. You know what I mean? So because we'll never know what Lauryn Hill, like again, suspended potential. Lauryn Hill didn't die, thank God, but much like Biggie, or Big Pun, some of these artists that only had like one or two albums, we'll never know what she would have been like had her sound matured. She never had the chance to really fall off. Mary kind of did. You know what I mean? It was a time, Mary was a huge star. coming out with hit after hit, and then she had personal problems, and she kind of hit a wall. And it wasn't until Family Affair and a lot of her newer hits, working with Dre especially, that she came back, and she did it big. That's why she was on the Super Bowl show, because although Diddy gave her her start, Dre took her to another level, and Dre kind of um, revitalized her career in the second half of it. As a more mature artist and a more mature woman. As far as her acting, now that's a whole nother story. I kind of like her on Power. I kind of like her on Ghost, but some people don't. She's not a great actress. Charlemagne said Kendrick is the king of hip hop. Right now, he is. I don't know. See, people are calling this king shit too prematurely. You know what I mean? He won one battle. Like, people need to calm down. And basically, he barely won. He didn't barely win it, but like, okay, before he dropped Not Like Us and Euphoria, it was close, Lisa. Push Up and Family Matters, they were pretty good tracks. You know what I mean? Um, it was the Hard Part 6, the response to uh, Euphoria and Not Like Us, that really, people like, oh, Drake's coming weak. But when Drake dropped Push Up and when Drake dropped Family Matters, um, it was pretty close. Uh, Charlemagne never liked Drake. You know what I mean? So his opinion is kind of biased. He has old Vlad TV interviews when he was on Vlad TV, like when Vlad first started out, where he basically said that Drake was garbage. That's why Drake said on Back to Back, "You're gonna have to make me buy bottles for Charlemagne." You know what I mean? Because Charlemagne has always been a Drake hater. You know what I mean? So saying that is like asking Lord Jamar, what does he think? You know, what does he think about Eminem's battle with Tyler the Creator or whomever? You know what I'm saying? He's gonna say something against Eminem because he doesn't like Eminem. You know what I mean? So Charlemagne's opinion is biased. Okay, Lisa, you said that just because you're the most, realize you're the most highest selling pop artist and the most. Okay, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, because plenty of people that they had their time in the sun and they were pop. Like, look at that group. Remember Bloodhound Gang? You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, but let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Like that was a hot song in 1999. People loved that song. You know what I mean? That charted big numbers, but nobody remembers them now. Remember the Blue group? I'm blue, da 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 da. You know, who remember who remembers them? You know, you know who remembers the chain smokers from 2016 with that song with Halsey, Closer. You know, that song was all over the place. Like you turn on the radio and you heard that song everywhere, right? But nobody talks about that now. You know, okay, Lisa says a lot of people remember Closer. Okay, they remember the song. The song will always be remembered and immortalized, especially by a lot of Gen Z, because that's when they came of age. A lot of the Gen Zers. Okay, in 2016. Okay, but then then Lisa, you're saying that, but you have to admit that if you're saying that, Lisa, then you have to admit that 2016 was Drake's year because that's when views dropped, right? 2015, 2016, when he had One Dance, when he had Hotline Bling, when he had okay, when he had Controller. Okay, but he makes good. This is the point that I'm trying to make. He makes good music. He's a good songwriter. Okay, he has a good team with him. But we all saying the same thing, but we're saying it in different ways. Okay, what did you consider him as an R&B artist? He can't be considered as an R&B artist because he doesn't really sing. Okay, he doesn't write none of his music. Okay, then Lisa, you can't consider NSYNC great artists. Then you can't consider the Backstreet Boys great artists. Then you can't even consider Kanye West a great artist. You're gonna tell me that Kanye West now is written out of the history of music. Meanwhile, he was dominant from his era when he dropped. uh, yeah, that's true. Lisa, for those that don't know, we know Lisa from the channel. We know she's been featured in a lot of these videos. We go at it, me and Lisa. You know what I mean? I love her. She's my co-host. We go at it. But Lisa, she doesn't really chime in as far as her musical opinions, but she is very 90s centric. When it comes to 90s, that's her lane. You know what I mean? Anything after that, I don't know. Some of the stuff in the 2000s, she's kind of a fan of. You know what I mean? But she mostly 90s. You know, she hates Beyonce. You know, the only person I think she hates more than Drake is Beyonce. You know what I mean? So one good thing about this battle for her, and she could give her own opinion on her own thoughts. But one good thing one good thing as pertains to this battle for her is that everybody's talking about Kendrick Lamar and people completely forgot about Beyonce's country album. You know what I mean? So this battle between Kendrick and Drake has taken the focus off of Beyonce's country album for Lisa, and that's a good thing because nobody's talking about the horrible rendition of Jolene. Nobody's talking about Texas Hold'em, which I like that song, but after a while on TikTok, it got kind of annoying. You know what I mean? So one good thing about this Drake battle is it's taking the attention off the Diddy shenanigans and it's taking the attention off Beyonce's country album. People, as a matter of fact, when there's something that links it to this, people are saying that Drake should come out in a cowboy hat and switch the country and do a concert on July 4th as a country artist. People are saying, okay, it worked for Beyonce. She switched the country after she had a horrible dance like album and she fell off. It worked for her. She got back on the charts. She got people talking about her again. So switch the country, Drake. I hope he just takes that as a joke. I hope he doesn't actually try to do that because I've seen a couple of posts with him and his son and his father in cowboy hats. You know what I mean? So I don't know if this is like, this could be like a new lane for them. I hope he doesn't take it serious. I can't imagine a Drake country album. Ever. I mean, he doesn't speak Spanish, but he's done a few songs with Bad Bunny. He did one with Romeo Santos back in the day. So maybe Spanish. uh, uh, um, well, I mean, let me say, here's the thing. If the song is good, I like it. If it ain't good, I won't. I don't like every single Drake song. There are some Drake songs I don't like. Well, he's already called no, but he's already called Champagne Poppy. You know what I mean? So, how big of a lot of them, Lisa, a lot of them. Anything off the last album that was a dance album, hated it, hated it. But yeah, that seems to be a trend in popular music now. A lot of these urban artists, rap, R&B, they're going into country. They're going into country. Somebody even, this is completely off topic, but somebody even told J Lo's manager, even told J Lo, a Puerto Rican girl from New York that is about as far apart from country as you could be, told her that if she wants to revitalize her career, she needs to go into country music. I mean, she's from New York. We don't even have a country station in New York. Nobody of any race listens to country music in a big way in New York City. It's New York City. It's the total opposite of country. There's nothing country about us. You know what I mean? Like, at least when Beyonce did it, she's from Texas, right? So that makes sense. But J Lo, I mean, Drake, I mean that would, I mean, then I would have to, not on the racist tip, but I would have to side with country fans if that starts happening. Like, wait a minute, what? You know, like now you're just trolling. Mm. Now you're just trolling. Now you're just fucking with the country artist. This isn't started because of Beyonce. But I really think that it started when Little Nas X came out with Old Town Road. Old Town, he shook it. He shook the game up in 2019 with that song. You know what I mean? Like that got a lot of us to say, you know what? I mean, the hardcore hip hop fans were like, "Fuck that," and the country people didn't like him because he was black. Right? I remember Dave East came out. The rapper Dave East came out and he said, this ain't real hip hop. You know what I mean? Old Town Road shit. You know what I mean? Like, and then when people found out he was gay, that wasn't even more like. Just Little Nas X made a career out of trolling people. But maybe Lisa's right. Maybe it's because of Beyonce. But I don't know. Country is the number one selling genre in the country right now. Rap isn't. Rap was, but now it isn't. You know what I mean? Rap fell off. It had its moment in the 2000s, you know what I mean? And then it fell off. Now country's doing it big. You know, I wouldn't be able to tell you who's the biggest country people out there. I know Luke Combs. I know Jason Aldean. I know, of course, Beyonce's new shit. I know a few of them. You know, Eric Church. You know, a couple. Darius Rucker, of course. He comes from the rock world. Hootie and the Blowfish. But anyway, guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see my next videos coming out. Thank you to Angel, and thank you to Jesse, and thank you to Lisa for contributing. Angel and Jesse, don't forget to like and subscribe to see when my next video is coming out. We'll be doing more music content. Peace. Love you guys.